Welcome back to another episode of the Briefcase of the Barn with me and Gary, a series of the Furious, the Curious show where we talk about business, life, Christianity, and more. Episode 42 or 41. Not sure. One of those two.
Oh no, we keep doing off recordings on weird days just so Kyle doesn't drop the bonus episode. So that's why I'm doing it anyways.
The bonus episode is where we answer talk about sex, and Gary's just like, we're just going to push that off. Especially his answers, which are very funny. How did you enjoy Freedom Sessions Grad last night?
It's exhausting.
It is tiring, isn't it?
Oh, hearing that much personal stuff, it's just like...
So if you don't know what Freedom Sessions is, it's a discipleship journey program, 28 weeks, that helps you get freedom. And the last evening is and in its sake, has an opportunity to share what has changed for them, what has done for them. And so there was probably 20, 30 people sharing last night?
Yeah. It's basically 22 and 23 each time. We had a grad last week too. Felt like the grad this week was more, I felt like people were a little more comfortable sharing.
Yeah. There's definitely some pretty heavy stories.
Oh yeah.
So I shared as well.
Yeah, you did great. I had one guy come up afterwards muttering to me, if I would have known ahead of time, I would have never signed up for this. Well, he wouldn't have signed up, wouldn't even have went, right? That's why I really struggle with talking too much about it, actually, about what's involved. Because it's one of those journeys where each step builds on each other and people just need to do it's no different than anything else in life. You got to walk before you run, right? So
I also believe more never is something that you've been saying for a while, which is weird. You know, like, why would I believe something Gary says for a while? But if you want to do it, you'll do it. And the people that don't want to do it, they don't want to do it. And you can't make a horse drink. You just can't force people You have to be like, hey, enough's enough. And I want to.
My cousin Johnny has a saying, which is probably the saying I come to the most in life in all areas, not just in Freedom Session, but you cannot help those that can't help themselves. Now
is that why he doesn't take Freedom Session?
That's why he doesn't help anybody, because they can't help themselves. No, he helps lots of people, but if somebody is incapable of seeing anything themselves and you think it's very clear to you the answers, like if somebody is in a business and their business is floundering, and to you it's like, hey, if you just did this different and that different, and you think, oh, I'm going to go help them, give them some knowledge, help them. Typically the people, as a general rule, and it probably doesn't apply for everybody, but if someone can't see any of it themselves, it won't help if you get involved.
Oh, that way, yeah.
Yeah. So I've had people lately that I've been kind of walking alongside, and what happens is I come in, I give them I'll lay out a bit of a plan, and they'll take 30% of my plan, right? Probably the easiest 30%. Do it and then wonder why it's not working. Well, it's because you just did what kind of worked for you in that moment. It's like, no, you have to execute on all of it, right?
Yeah.
And it's very interesting how, especially in business, I find it's like, hey, people have, obviously we're all struggling in some sense, or there's things we can do better, but it was just fascinating how, you got to do the hard stuff, right? And
that's why I think coaching is so powerful, because you're not coming in doing that. You're coming in saying, like, what do you actually want? Where is what you're doing?
And eventually they should realize it themselves, what they need to change.
That's right, yeah.
And that's similar to Freedom Session, right?
That's right.
Eventually you get to that spot where you're, doing your authentic life plan. In the back of the course, there's a third book, and it's very much like daily stuff. Yeah.
Because a lot of coaching is actually accountability type coaching, where you're just like, hey, you
babysitting.
Or you acknowledge a bunch of problems, and then the coach asks the next week, so have you done these things? And the guy says, yeah, I did them, or didn't do them, whatever. But then as soon as the coach is gone, well, then you go back to all your own crap again, or your old habits. Well, then there's no change there, right? You're just like, and so it has to come from yourself, like we're the driver of it. So,
do you have a busy week? Feels like you had a crazy week, because Tuesday we were going to record and you pushed off.
Yeah, what I was really most struggling this week was reading all those papers that I came from when I was in the psych ward as a little kid.
Did you read them all?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was really hard to read.
Okay.
And it definitely rattled me pretty hard. I never read them before, and just like seeing what was said about me and what the doctors were saying and what was being said to my parents and all of that. And then because I also had been knew 3 or 4 days later, I had to
talk on Thursday
night and give my Freedom Session grad, which this year I just did a lot of forgiveness work on myself and others, and just hurts and pains. And so it was just like, I was all over the place. I couldn't, I was struggling pretty hard. But then on Wednesday night, I wrote it all out finally. And the process of writing out the testimony,
it was healthy too.
That's that's when all of a sudden I felt way better. I just felt like I had 4 hours of sleep yesterday, and I was fine because I was just like I felt so much peace, and so yeah.
I was surprised. Most people write it out.
If I don't write it out, man, I'm going to say something I do not want to
Okay.
say.
Okay.
And I've known myself enough that I'm like, okay, I want to be pretty intentional
About what comes out of your mouth. Yeah, I thought it was really cool. I thought people were, just really vulnerable, right? And for me, because this year I didn't lead a small group, I've said that to you before, I felt very disconnected from the journey to some degree. And then it's kind of like brings it right home when you hear people and hear their stuff. And there's quite a few people that spoke pretty critically to me about the journey early on, and were, because I'm a big tire pumper, right? And they're like, they're complaining and saying that they hate it, which, I mean, it makes sense. So then to hear those people go up there and speak pretty positively about it and encourage others to walk the hard road is pretty cool. So I'll be curious to see how next year looks. We'll get going again in September. For those that had somebody reach out to me yesterday morning, 60-year-old guy, has gone to church ever until like a year or two ago. He started going to church. Salvation Army Church, and somebody put him in touch with me, and he called me in the morning, and then he came to the Grad at night, and he's coming next year. So
talked to a friend afterwards last night, and I think the biggest thing I think is cool is that, the testimonies are cool, but a couple of days later, you forget about them. The ones that you hear, and you kind of forget it, even about how hard freedom session is if you have done it being a participant. But the actual freedom that people walk in that's life changing. Right? Like, one person was sharing last night how much happier they are as a mom, and how much
lighter version. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. Like,
that was pretty cool.
Imagine like you're a husband or a dad or a mom or a boss or an employee, and you're just way lighter, and the people around you just
appreciate that. That is a gift to everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
and it's funny, we all want to be that. Nobody wants to be a nagging or critical person, or nobody's like, oh, sign me up to be that. But we just are, because we're human beings, and we have a lot of crap that we got to deal with, right? So it's pretty special.
So it's that kind of stuff where I think about, I'm like, wow, this is now going to trickle down to like your kids, your grandkids, like to all these people around you, right? And it's awesome. So
yeah, I spoke at the, I think I put it in the show notes, but I spoke at my old school there on earlier this week. A teacher invited me to speak at the entrepreneurship class, and I mean, it's funny. I said to Marie, like, these kids do not care what I say, right? And then in hindsight, just today I was thinking about it again. I'm like, when I was that age, like, I would have been throwing stuff at me, the person speaking, or really rude, or So, anyways, they were very respectful, but I was just like, man, am I that boring? Like,
you only need one guy to take something, right?
Yeah, I just kind of told my story about starting hay sales and all that stuff.
Oh, cool.
Just kind of the farming journey and giving. I mean, there again.
What was the class? How old?
Entrepreneurship class, grade 12.
How many kids?
8 kids.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, all guys too, which I thought was interesting. I've spoke before. I think it's probably the 3rd or 4th time I've spoke there. And the other thing I thought I should do, and there again, it's not my skill set, but I could get Tim or somebody else that has a skill set to help me. I should just create like a PowerPoint, right? I'm just talking.
Oh, yeah.
And I think, especially today, right? These kids are used to watching 7-second reels or whatever videos on Snapchat. Like, listen to some 40-year-old boring man go monotone for 45 minutes preaching, right? So if I just had a nice little slide with some of my journey and stuff and kind of told the story with pictures, that would probably help, right? So
Get Tim to make it.
Yeah.
It's an 8-week course, and anybody can sign up. And they have courses that run 8 weeks. It's free anytime, and there's a leader. And so there was people from the UK, Africa, a couple of guys in the States.
All different. Everybody's doing something different.
About eight people in the group, and it goes for 8 weeks, and they just talk about integrating your faith into your business and how often it's so separated, or it gets really cliquey with just like you put a Bible verse on the wall and now you're a Christian company, or you force people. And so I'm curious what it's going to be about. I guess I know my accountant, Josh Weem, recommended it to me.
Okay, I know Josh.
Yeah. And awesome.
Cool.
And so, it'll be interesting to see what it takes. But I think it's something that a lot of, especially business owners that are Christians struggle with. Is like,
oh, I struggle with it. Totally. Totally. How far do you go? Are you supposed to be, how blunt do you be? How do you even, like you say, like how, I don't know.
My take on it is the fruits of the Spirit of love, joy, peace, patience, gentleness, thankfulness, and self-control. It's like, if we're really living those out as a business owner and whatever you're doing, you will have opportunities to talk because people will listen to you. We listen to those people the most, right? The people that are like, even if they're, if it's some of my Muslim friends or whatever else like that, if they're kind and respectful and stuff like that, like I'm gonna listen, right? I'm gonna hear what they have to say, and so yeah. Also went out for lunch this week with the guy that called me out publicly.
Oh, how'd that go?
It was awesome.
Okay, beautiful.
Had a really-
Redeeming.
Yeah,
Okay,
it was
that's
really,
awesome.
Really good lunch.
Okay.
Just there was some miscommunication, I think, and things like that, and not fully understood, but we just listened, and he's a great guy, and
Did you make amends, or you didn't need to? You didn't do anything wrong.
I didn't make any amends. No, I didn't feel like I didn't.
I'm a Canadian, right? I say sorry just to cover all the bases, right? Sorry, I got caught.
But now you're making me question
Sorry,
myself.
I
If there
got
is
caught.
anything.
Well, think about it, right?
Yeah. Anyways,
You always run under the guise of just, hey, I'm being honest, and honesty is brutally important. And you're not wrong. It's just that I was gonna say when you're an a-hole and honest, but like when you're
I try very hard not to be an asshole.
no,
when
I
I'm
know.
honest.
I'm just saying it's like brutally honest is still brutal, right? Yeah, you got like
Yeah, but I don't create the brutal though. The honesty is the brutal part.
no, that's not necessarily true.
Give me an example of
I don't
where
have one
I'm
right off
not
the cuff.
okay.
Yeah,
Once
so
you give
I
an
will-
example,
I will. I'll
we'll
bring it
come
up in the
back
next
here and we'll
podcast.
discuss this where I've been honest in a way that's brutal and
I think even it's back to like last week when I shared, it's like the idea of even what we share when we're talking about specific people. It's like, hey, are we gossiping? Like I was convicted about it again this week. I had a experience
I think that's a
with
different
client.
subject you're talking about now though.
Well, I'm just saying in general, there's this line of, no, even just in general, it's like the minute, there's so many areas where we probably just need to say less,
Yes.
right? Or at least for me. Obviously, there's
speak.
some people
Slow to speak, quick to
slow to
listen.
speak, and there's obviously people that are on the other end. I'm always even scared to say that because there's people that just say nothing and are scared and never speak truth. And
exactly.
Those
Yeah.
people need to just
Speak up.
speak up more. But like in my case, in your case, we need to speak less, which is why we have a podcast. And so it's so stupid. Anyways, so I just feel like, hey, there's always that balance. I think I shared this maybe last week already, but yeah, somebody said to me, just even our tone on here, they were really, you could tell that they were hurt by things I've said, right?
Okay, but
I
I've
can
also
tell
got
that.
a lot of messages saying, way more messages, negative messages, which is, I don't know if that's common or not, but saying like, hey, I appreciate how respectful you guys are still, and how you don't go around bashing other churches and things like that. That's why I don't name names.
Yeah,
of
way
churches.
way more. I need to be that way, and I just think even now it's. I find even if I'm not naming a name or talking about an institution, because it's such a small world, people kind of know what you're talking about. It's like, hey, you just gotta be so careful that it's later again, not to avoid speaking candidly, but
Martin Luther said, it was Martin Luther, maybe it was John Bunyan, I can't remember now. Never sacrifice truth on the altar of peace. And I think that's our temptation, right? Because we want to be accepted,
peace.
we want to be liked, we want to
yeah, no, that would be my bent. So that's fair. The other thought was,
I think it's funny you have no examples of me being truthful that ever happened.
wow, and am I going to say it now and like regurgitate and hurt someone again? No, I'm going to talk to you about it privately.
Okay.
Like, oh, this is the time. Make it really awkward.
I don't mind awkward.
No, you don't. That's the problem. I had something I thought was really great to say, but I forgot it. So, anyways, we can carry on from that tirade.
Okay.
Oh no, I do remember now. Back to why I asked if you had made amends. My wife always says this to me because I've many times in our marriage, my defense will always be, "Oh, I didn't mean to hurt you." Right? We go out, we're like at a party. I'm totally making fun of her, total loser, and everybody's laughing except her. She's hurt, and I'm like, "Oh, I didn't mean to hurt you. I was just joking around." All like. If someone's hurt, they're hurt. And even if our intention is perfectly pure, and I think that's where we're so defensive and so quick to defend ourselves. Like, who cares? Like, just, hey, I am sorry you're hurt. And I don't want to hurt you. I love you. I care for you. Like, why would I'm sorry I did that. And and the minute I say that wasn't my intent, I'm basically trying to minimize the pain, right? And that's BS.
Yeah, or make an excuse. Or
Make an excuse. I'm a big excuse maker.
But also, Dave Curry really taught me this in counseling because me and Nicole went through it, like all the stuff that I had done, and I was saying my intention wasn't to hurt you when it came to Nicole, whatever, and he would say, Kyle, your intentions don't matter, your actions do.
Yeah,
like it's your actions, like that has the result. If I run over someone with a car and I didn't mean to, they still just got run over by a car.
Yeah, bingo.
So back to a business thing. One thing I was thinking about this week is I'll ask you this question first. What's one of the first things you should do if you want to start a business? Any business.
Probably run it by a few people and ask them if it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Like if you just have the idea. So it was one of the advice I gave in the entrepreneurship class, to have like 2 or 3 people, guys or women, that you just really respect. I always say people that have what you want, whatever that may be, whether it be a family or a, good faith life or good business, just say, hey, and then pick those people and just periodically meet them. And most people that are relatively successful are happy to share what they know. And the interesting part is often they won't be people that think they know that much, because they've just done the right things and they're just doing it. And that's because they're relatively healthy. They just make wise choices, right? So I just kind of encourage them to have that. I think you can avoid a lot of the pain and suffering with a bit of asking questions, right? And so that would be the first thing. Did you have a different answer? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great answer. I don't know if there's like a one size fits all, but I was thinking more on that terms of, often when someone wants to start a business, they feel like they have to go make a logo and get their business registered and do all kinds of stuff like that. And business is simply the exchange of like goods for services, or value, a value of money, right? And people get to decide, hey, am I willing to pay that much money for what you say the value is, that you're offering? And so I would say start with making money. Like start by actually doing that exchange. Now you actually have a business. Now now you'll have some money to go pay someone to, set up your business the right way, in the legal way, with a good quality logo, and pay someone, whatever. But often we go and spend money first to do all the proper things before,
without even having
we having a dime in the bank account. Just actually go figure out like what value you're going to go offer, what you're going to go do. So. You put a real estate market update on the show notes. I got some feedback on this week. Feedback about your real estate update this week, that the world is bigger than the Fraser Valley. So
I mean, I talk about the market I know. I used to own farmland in Saskatchewan. I sold that about 2 years ago. I owned a farm in Manitoba. I sold that. I follow real estate podcasts from Ontario, so anything I would know would be regurgitated from that. I listen to. I mean, I wouldn't suggest him because he's curses, Ron Butler, but he's got some great guests on, like brokers and just people that are super boots on the ground.
I wouldn't suggest him, but here's his name.
Here's his name in his podcast. I've actually been meaning to send him a message, and I will. You can hold me to this next week. I will send him a message because I would totally share his content if he didn't use the Lord's name.
Interesting on that note,
drives me crazy.
When I was 9 years old, I would listen to Dr. Laura all the time.
Oh dear.
Like I didn't realize how big of a nerd I was. I'm figuring all this stuff out. Like the psychologists, like I was following.
You're just realizing now you're a nerd?
Yeah.
Get you a mirror.
Thanks. Anyways, but Dr. Laura would say OMG a lot, and use the Lord's name in vain. And so I wrote her an email asking if she could stop so I could keep listening to her show. At like 9 years old, and I guess my mom might have photocopied that.
I just think somebody like this guy, Ron, who's like a crass man, who's, F-bombs and whatever. It's like, I don't, he's free to do whatever he wants, and he'll be accountable for it. I just think when you're in a business like his where, he's an attention seeking whore, and he's very well known. Like he probably has like tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of followers on Twitter, and runs a YouTube channel. Like if you want people to share your content, why would you be proud that you're offensive? Why would you not want to just have, or at least have a clean section where people can listen to it and not feel like they're being accosted by his verbal diarrhea, right? But anyways.
Yeah, Gary Vaynerchuk is?
Yes.
Yeah, same thing. Just
great content probably, but really just really crass.
Yeah, very crass. Yeah. And they ask him about it as well. Like parents go up to him, I want my kids to listen, this and that. And he's like, hey, I swear in front of my kids too, this is just who I am. Like, just get over it.
Take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it. And he's just, I don't care.
In different language.
Okay, we are going back to Gentle and Lowly after taking a week off.
Or two,
depending on when the other one comes out. It's a book called The Heart of Christ for Sinners and Sufferers, and we're going through one chapter a week. Right now we're in chapter 12, which is titled A Tender Friend. And I quote Matthew 11, verse 19, which is on the top of the chapter, a friend of tax collectors and sinners.
Halfway through the book. This book is a half a year worth of podcast, by the way. I just put that together in my brain.
We'll have to think through it next time we decide.
Pick a 23 chapters.
I actually talked to Marie last night about reading through that book, and she's just like...
Oh, even in public?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, at least she's consistent.
Would you have been taught that Jesus is your friend growing up?
No.
Do you think of him now as your friend?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I think the reason was because I think I was taught that obviously Jesus is a friend to those that are trusting in him. And the bulk of what I heard growing up was not, it was not speaking to those that were Christians, right? It was assuming that most people were not, or at least that's my perception. And to be fair, that may have been, it probably was true. It was for sure true when I was in my Bible class in middle school, let's say, right? I'm assuming a lot, but based on, my experience. But
I think it's interesting. This chapter starts out talking about how in present day modern world, there's very little, a huge lack of male friends and male friendships and being completely open with each other. And how that makes it hard for us to even imagine that Christ could be our friend. Because we have that lack of example, just like, our example of God the Father is our own dads and things like that. And I thought that was interesting. And then also how that it's Jesus got accused by people of being a friend of tax collectors and sinners. That is a friend of the most despicable kinds of sinners known in that culture. But it wasn't his disciples that called him that. It was his antagonists that called him that, who most clearly perceive who he is. And the crowds called him a friend of sinners as an indictment. And I thought that was interesting as well, how it wasn't like they could see in his actions that he was a friend to the outcasts of the society, of the worst people. And I think that's good to meditate on and think about as I often find myself in that spot. I'm like, man, and seeing that's who Christ's heart goes out to, and who he got accused to be a friend of sinners.
I think the reason that we know that most of us don't feel this way is that often people, when they do the wrong things or they really screw up, they don't run to God. They try to hide from him, right? I mean, Adam and Eve did that in the beginning, and I think we still do that today, right? Where when we have horrible thoughts or we do the wrong thing or really, really screw up, we don't cry out to God and ask him to forgive us necessarily right away. We just try to run, or at least I do. Maybe I'm. Yeah. I don't know if that's.
I mean, one of the quotes here says, "Most of us admit that even with our best friends, we don't feel fully comfortable divulging everything about our lives. We like them and even love them and go on vacation with them and sing their praises to others, but we don't really, at the deepest heart level, entrust ourselves to them. Even in many of our marriages, we have, or our friends of sort, but we haven't gotten naked in a soul the way we have in a body."
So I had that underlined too, and I put Freedom Session Step 5 because that's what Freedom Session Step 5 is the fifth step in the 12 steps, is to kind of share everything about ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's fascinating when you go to a grad and somebody will share, I shared every last part of me and the person still cared for me, and just how special that is, right? And like you say, we often might not even have that with our spouse. How sad is that, right? Where it's like, here's the person that you're literally naked with, and it's like, oh no, but they don't actually fully know you, right? So I
think the biggest reason for that is not necessarily because they're not potentially a good friend, but we're not comfortable in our own skin, right? We don't like ourselves. Yeah, there's one part of it that I think is good to mention as well, because often when the friendship of Jesus is talked about, we feel like we're like being disrespectful, or we humanize too casual, or humanize him too much. So and it talks about that. So it says we should not overly domesticate Jesus here. He's not just any friend. A few chapters earlier in Revelation, we see a depiction of Christ so overwhelming to John that he falls down immobilized. But neither should we dilute the humanness, the sheer relational desire, clearly present in these words from the mouth of the risen Christ himself. He isn't waiting for you to trigger his heart. He is already standing at the door, knocking, wanting to come into you. So what's our job? Our duty, says Sibbs, which is Richard Sibbs, I believe, is to accept of Christ's inviting of us. What will we do for him if we will not feast with him? We're always thinking about the more stuff we can go do with for Jesus or for God, but he's asking
Mary Martha convert.
Yeah, if we won't even feast with him and enjoy him and accept his love for us. So
another part that I had starred was on page 120, and it was just at the top there. It would be cruel to suggest that human friendship is irrelevant once one has been befriended by Christ. God made us for fellowship, for union of heart with other people. Everyone gets lonely, including introverts, it says. And it's fascinating. I had a meal with a guy very recently, and very lonely and just really sad, like emotionally lonely, right? And I'm thinking, I said to Marie afterwards, I said, like, nobody could be farther from what I am than this person, right? Where it's just like, but like it's important. And I think, we often go, I think, into victim mentality. People that are lonely, or people that, they often think it's like, no, I got where I am by putting myself out there and being somewhat uncomfortable at times, or, there are things we can do. And if we can always find an excuse to not do things. Like anybody can, like even the people that are doing everything have all the excuses, typically often have the same excuses as the person that's living by themselves. So I just feel like, community is important.
Yeah. So before you went to a freedom session in 2016, I'm not sure how healthy you were before that, but like, how open would you have been with other people?
More open than most people, but not open about everything. There would have been little parts of my life. I think that's really what it comes down to. Even guys that I know now that are amazing people. There's a lot of really solid people. It's amazing how people keep a little part of their life, that little piece of secret stuff going on or something that they're struggling with it by themselves. And in many other ways, they're probably doing really well, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny because the devil just uses that. Like you're a fraud, and he knows it, and he uses it. And that's how it was for me. It was like, you go to church, I go to church and just feel like a total fraud, like feel like such a hypocrite, right? And so that's the beautiful thing. All of a sudden, there's so much power lost by Satan when we are fully known by somebody, right? He can no longer hold that.
I think it's also especially not even what we're doing, but what we're thinking, because everyone has crazy thoughts, like thoughts that
you and I for sure have crazier thoughts than others, but no, everybody does. That's totally true.
Like thoughts you don't want to have. Yeah. And if you just
really dark thoughts, even some moms, dads, I hear that sometimes, and I'm like, no, that's just, we're human. We're gonna sin.
That's right. Yeah. But to then share those, that's when they lose their power. Like grab the phone, hop on the phone and be like, hey, I'm thinking these crazy things. Like all of a sudden.
And because everybody, as a general rule, doesn't share that, we would assume we're the only ones, right? That's pretty normal. Yeah. Anyways, good chapter.
Imposter syndrome. Struggle with that? You put that on there.
Yeah, I think it's come up periodically at church meetings and
elders. Define it first.
I couldn't even define it as well as some people could. You define it. How would you define it?
I asked you.
Well, I don't even know if I have the proper definition, but I guess for me, it feels like this idea of you end up in all these roles, or for myself, it's like, okay, I'm like directing freedom session. I don't feel qualified, which there again, that surprises people because they think, oh, you have an easy time talking at the front. No, I don't. Yeah. Like I do not. I'm obviously not as scared of public speaking as other people, but like I'm always insecure. I'm worried that I said everything properly. I'm worried I'm going to say the wrong thing. Yeah. Mostly say something inappropriate, and that's not good. So I just feel like it's interesting. It comes back to what we were just talking about, actually, where it's just this idea of like, hey, if you're transparent, and I've been really blessed where I've had it recently, even where guys have been like really giving me affirmation, even though despite my brokenness and sin. Yeah. So I don't know what the technical definition is, but the imposter syndrome is this idea of somebody that's doing something and doesn't feel at all like, they just feel like a total fraud, right? And I mean, I don't feel now like I'm a total fraud, but I definitely feel like there's this like, whoa, wait a minute, this is me doing this, like this is whacked.
Yeah, I have it with this podcast that, so I think we're fairly open on here, but there's still like things in my real life that I struggle with. And I don't share all the details. Like last night I shared my freedom session testimony, and I was really looking up against it because I was like, I had this subconscious thing that I had to portray that I had it all together when I'm like, I don't, like I'm still human or whatever else like that. And so I feel it in that area sometimes, or I feel like other people might view me better than I actually am, and that makes me really uncomfortable. It's just like, no, I'm just
or they view us worse, like whatever.
Yeah,
who cares?
That I don't
Who
mind.
Cares? You don't care? No, they don't care how dark of a spot they put you in.
No, whatever. I mean, I'm Romans 3. My heart's like an open grave. I need Jesus. Yeah. So, I mean, it can't get much worse than that. No. But I was thinking about sharing that freedom session testimony on here, and just to share more of that real side. Thoughts on that? Think it's something I should do?
Let me think about it.
Yeah. Maybe I'll come on.
I don't think you shared too much last night. I don't think it'd be a big deal to share that on here. There again, I'd have to read it one more time, but
yeah, I'll just pull it up and do it.
Let's do it next time. Think about it.
Next week. Yeah, it's a good idea. That's wise.
Pray about it.
That's wise. There we go. We got some wisdom here.
Well, you only asked one person, and I said ask at least two more, right?
Well, it's always good to think about. And Paul, I've learned slowly. As a pretty very impulsive person, to slow down.
Yeah.
And just to think things through.
Yeah.
Anyways, good chat. If you have any feedback, send it in. If you questions for us or scenarios,
I never did share about the real estate market.
Oh,
You made fun of me. Oh, I was gonna.
Okay,
super interesting market. Like
you
just
want to,
crazy.
You want to talk into the mic or your hand?
Oh, my hand. Got my head in my hand. Well, I showed places this morning. Every day this week I've showed real estate, which is not normal for me. It kind of feast or famine. This week there was people from out of town. Showed a lot of places, and fascinating how so few places. And there again, it's the price point, or obviously if there's no budget, it doesn't matter. But you're trying to fit in this window. And so on the selling side, I have a couple listings now, and they're both great listings in a lot of ways. They're both priced very, very sharply. Like they're definitely priced to sell. I'm sure they both will sell. I'm pretty sure. But it's just like this idea of when you're trying to sell, it's amazing how you can't get an offer. Like we haven't got an offer on these listings. I think we will probably in the next week. But it's still tough to sell. And then on the buying side, it's still not that easy. Like it's this weird market right now, it feels like, where, a lot of sellers, like I'm thinking of the one place we looked at today, it says motivated seller right in the realtor's notes. So for those of you that look at listings, I don't know if it's like this in other parts of the country, probably is. For sure it is in BC. There's like the description that everybody sees when they click on a link on realtor.ca or wherever they're finding their realtor stuff. And then there's the realtor remarks. And in the realtor remarks as a realtor, we have to post where the measurements are from. Because like you can imagine that over the years, people have posted bizarre whacked measurements. Yeah. People have taken measurements and then they did a reno on the house and it's either way bigger or way smaller. And they like go move in and the master bedroom doesn't fit their bed because the measurements are wrong or whatever. Enough, so anyway, so you have to put where the measurements are from. And then the realtor's notes, you can put anything you want and only other realtors see it.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. And so like there's a lot of info in there. And it's fascinating. Like I had someone with the showing request today for Sunday. I'm like, it says right in the realtor notes, we're not doing Sunday showings. Like people don't read anything, right? Yeah. No different than we're all like that, I guess. But so in there, like a lot of times, like lately, you're starting to see motivated seller, like we'll consider all offers, right? So you see that. And then on the other side, there's listings coming. I've talked to other agents to have clients like, if we sell for this, we'll sell. And if we don't, so even if you have a downward trending market, you're going to have certain product, either people that just don't need to sell.
How is that different than a market from 3 years ago?
Because it was order taking. Like it is a grind to sell stuff now. You will list a place. I'm going to list a place. I'll spend thousands of dollars marketing it. And if the people don't, here again, it's back to like if the client doesn't want to lower the price or they're only going to sell for a certain amount, you as a realtor need to have the wherewithal, either to not take a listing, which some realtors wouldn't, or take the listing, spend thousands and not sell it and be okay with that, right?
I went out for lunch with the realtor a couple weeks ago and he said that do you think there's like 800 realtors in this area? Locally or whatever else like that.
Well, there's probably 300 or 400 just in Chilliwack.
Yeah, okay. So he said last year, only 20% sold a place.
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
Of existing realtors. 20%. That was that means like of that 700-800.
I don't know if it's that bad, but it's.
Yeah. Like
for sure, 10 or 20% do 80 or 90% of the deals, for sure. I bet you the top 10% of realtors or 5% of realtors do 80% of the deals. And the problem is because houses in 20 years have went from 150 grand to $1 million in Chilliwack where we live, or 900 for sure. The commission is so much that you don't have to do a lot of deals. So that's part of the problem. So then you get a lot of part-time realtors, people that work at Best Buy and then do some real estate deals on the side, right?
Yeah.
So, and there again, I'm not even saying that's a bad thing. I mean, it might not be ideal, but it's, maybe you're doing that as you're getting the foot in the door, but it's this idea of, just easy money, but like it's not that easy because you could list. I don't know if he said that, but like for me, it's like I don't know.
Well, I mean, this guy I talked to, he still did like door knocking and
he's hustling.
He's hustling. And I'm like,
that's
awesome. You're putting in the work, right? You get results that way, and it reminded me how important hard work is. When last year I seen Sarah Toop at she's a local realtor here, and I think fairly successful.
She's the number one seller.
Number one seller. Okay, yeah. So she was. I went to a golf tournament. And it was like a Saturday. And it was in the afternoon, and she was at one of the holes. And
just
I'm like,
selling hard.
I'm like, wow, like you're like
aggressive.
Number one realtor, and you're grinding here. That's why you're number one realtor. Like you're putting in the work.
Yeah. And it's interesting because it's a bit of you see it now, and I can say this because I sell enough stuff, and I've listed stuff high and not sold it, or vice versa. How you list matters. And so like if you are thinking of selling, and I'm probably not your realtor, but you have a realtor, do not go on a fishing expedition. Like just price it where it is going to sell. And if you, by chance, this is everybody's worst fear that they left 5 grand or 20 grand on the table. If by chance you list it too low, you will get multiple offers and it will sell for over asking. I could show 5 examples, right? Yeah. So I always tell people like, if you don't care and you're fine with getting your house ready to show 30 times and have people come through and say it's overpriced and not make an offer, hey, that's fine. It's a free country. But like if you actually want to sell it,
but
price
also I
it-
think it's your
price
attitude
it
about
sharp.
like, do we want to sell everything for like the max and squeeze every last penny out of every transaction?
Of
Like
course we do.
those people suck to work with.
Yeah, well, they're probably not going to sell their place, or they'll sell it with their third realtor.
No, but that's what I mean though. Like as like, well, I mean, even from a Christian worldview, like you want to just be fair, right? You want to like,
What is fair? Nobody sees the value of their own stuff clearly. My wife's renting her clothes now. She's like, oh, everything you have is worth a fortune. Everything else you want to buy is not worth anything. It's not totally true, but a little bit.
your clothes, you said?
No, just everything I want to buy. Like anytime we do a deal, right? She gets so mad at me, right? She's like, I'm trying to chisel. She's kind of saying I'm in that camp.
Yeah, yeah.
No, that's not totally true. I've sold privately. If you sell privately,
My last two homes are sold privately.
yeah, like and I'm not saying it's good or bad, like, but I probably left money on the table when I sold one of the places, but like, who cares? Like, there again, it's back to what you're saying. If you're happy with what you made and you can move on to your next thing.
Yeah, I think it makes the element of greed or element of like I can't get screwed. Like I have to get like the max. Just like
Well,
make a fair
in a
deal.
falling, yeah. So in a falling market, like in a bit of a correcting market or a market for sure like this, I think most realtors would agree. I mean, this is a tough market to get a deal. Like, there's a lot of inventory. Like, you will definitely end up selling for less if you have a stale listing, right? And so it's this idea of, hey, if you have a pretty good product, and that's the bigger issue is that, like, I went to show places this week and the paint is like blending into the ceiling, right? And there's lights that don't work and there's no closet doors and there's like sheets hanging and like low hanging fruit, like, you know,
that
the
doesn't help.
like it's so like bark mulch, cut grass, pressure wash driveway, fresh coat of paint. Those are all things that you can do for under a couple grand.
And it's also what that value is here. Because my last house I sold it privately because like I knew I had to do a whole bunch of those things, and it was like a rundown house, and I hate the idea of showings, and I hate the idea.
Yeah, and it's and when people come through critical, it just sucks the life out of you, right? Yeah, every single
that
realtor,
too, yeah. So it was, for me, it was worth it. Just like, hey, let's
be done with it.
get out of here and sell it. So,
Yeah.
anyways, thanks for listening, guys. Feedback, send it in. Like, comment, share, subscribe. See you next week.
Have a great week.
See ya.